So now everyone please come with us and welcome a new. We have two main guest speakers from South Africa, Dr. Brenda and Dr. Funan. Today they will be presenting about mentoring across borders, and accept best perspectives to enhance female voices in South Africa. So everyone please welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will spend a few minutes with you just kind of talking about mentoring across the borders. And so as we walk through this presentation, we'll explain the asset-based perspective. I'm Dr. Brenda Marina. I am from Akron, Ohio in the United States. And I had the opportunity to visit the University of KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa. When I visited the university, I took my book that I had written called Mentoring Away the Glass Ceiling, a cultured critique. And I left that book there with the Dean of the College of Education. And he forwarded that book on to a colleague, educator of his. That particular colleague was Dr. Fumani, and she contacted me and indicated she wanted me to serve as a mentor for her. And so since that time, I had an opportunity to write a book review, and I invited her to write in that book review with me. And when I saw that book review and how well she was versed in research and writing, I also asked her to work with me on a book chapter in 2017. Again, she had a very interesting approach to research. So she also had the opportunity to join us in the United States for the International Mentoring Association Conference in 2019. And so we have continued with our mentoring relationship, working through research projects. And then at this time, I'll just go right ahead and turn it over to Dr. Fumani, and she can explain more about the different assets that she has contributed to the field of mentoring.
Thank you very much, Dr. Marina. Yeah, without a waste of time, it's a pleasure to be here. So the story of mentoring with Dr. Marina motivated me actually to share my story with other women in South Africa. And when I realized the challenges that they're experiencing as educators in higher education, I came up with an initiative where we as women, especially those coming from minority group, are always faced with challenges. So when I listen to the stories which are most mine, we started initiative which we called Women in Higher Education Mentor and Mentee Relationship, because we had to share stories, and that's how we started the initiative. So recognized initiative, and we are currently 3 members. Well, I'll talk to that one towards the end. Yes, the next slide, please. Yeah, so our stories were not just stories in the corridor. We had a project, a research project. We applied for ethical clearance, and we continue to share our stories as Black women in higher education around our challenges in higher education. And particularly for me, it was how I got to meet Brenda and motivated me to write about my stories and also to share my stories. This is the first platform that we shared our stories, and not only our challenges, but also our resiliences. And this was a local conference in South Africa. And we presented a paper around our challenges, but also our resiliences. And my reflection was also about mentoring in that regard. And the next conference was the WERA, the World Educational Research Association, which was in South Africa. This is Cape Town in South Africa. And it was the first time that South Africa held the World Educational Research Association. And at this point, I presented, again, representing the other 2 women. I presented a paper which were, again, talking about our initiative, which is about our challenges and also our resiliences, and also looking up to what can we do as women in higher education with the support of our mentors that we already have. Yeah, yes, next one. Yeah, so when I left the conference actually at where I was motivated again by my engagement with Brenda, and Wera also advertised the proposals, and they were looking at people who can form the International Research Network. So I took this advantage and wrote a proposal to World Educational Research Association, and our proposal was accepted, and it's now a 3-year project where we are looking at complexities. So this is the topic of a 3-year project where we are looking at the complexities and resiliences of higher education in the context of Africa. Now, our project is a 3-year plan, and this is formed by 3 women from one institute through the mentor, which is Brenda, who is in the United States, who is my mentor. And we are now in the 2nd year of the project, and these are some of the objectives that we are going to work in. And we work with other women in higher education in Africa at large. And this is just a plan, and perhaps if you're interested, you'll get the PowerPoint, but this is just what we're working on now to make sure that our story doesn't end in the corridor or in the kitchen, but we also document our stories so that other women also can listen to our stories and perhaps create a platform for mentoring and such. Yes, the next one slide. Yeah, so as part of the International Research Network, the outcomes that are expected from our International Research Network, by 2021, we hope we are going to meet this. We expected to publish 6 articles. We already held a symposium of which we invited specifically Brenda, who now is serving like a mentor to almost 20 women that are part of this IRN. And among the guest speakers of the 2020 symposium, we had Brenda, we have Professor Faye Ngunjiri from the United States of America. We had other keynote speaker from South Africa. And from my own university, we have Professor Pendler, and I was chairing that. And again, it was a privilege to have Brenda as my mentor to chair that session. It was not easy, but her presence meant a lot. I remember before I started, or during the course of the symposium, I told her that I'm panicking, Brenda. And she said, no, you are doing fine. It's going to be fine. It's going to be all right. So that's the role of mentoring in this case. So, and this was our first virtual symposium that we as the conveners of this International Research Network conducted in South Africa. Next slide, please. Yeah, so in a nutshell, currently this initiative is led by myself and the other 2 colleagues, Dr. Larre and Dr. Kelu, who also look up to me as a mentor. And I am the mentee to Dr. Marina. So it's a chain of mentoring. And I brought them on board because I couldn't do alone, and they had to also learn by practice. And currently, in terms of membership, we have 20 members, and it's now about time for discussion. And we are coming from 5 or 6 countries in Africa. Thank you. Yeah, Brenda, I think, yes, the next slide. Then I happened also to participate in the International Mentoring Association. I presented last week. That was another platform given by my mentor to showcase my work and to continue supporting me as an academic in higher education and educator also. Yes, please. I think at this point, I just want to hand over again to Brenda, because we still have ongoing future projects. Currently, we're working on the chapter that is due in 2 or a month to come. And that's the kind of mentoring that we are engaging in. Yes. Yeah, so I think in closing, I would like to say I wouldn't be to University of Florida if it was not because of the mentor and the kind of mentoring that I learned from Brenda. And just to close, our daily experiences as women in higher education, it allows us to question the dominant narratives of transformation with specific reference to women academics from previously marginalized communities. And I think mentoring matters for women in higher education, especially for those from marginalized communities. Thank you.
And I'll return and I will say that projects like these are the kinds of projects that allow the members to work together collectively. And these are the types of projects that we hope that we can extend to you through the International Mentoring Association. As Dr. Phumani and I have worked over time, we have been able to invite others into the different projects. And it is something that we hope that we will be able to continue to do. Within the International Mentoring Association, we have various projects that are going on, and it is our hope that all of you or some of you will think about going to that particular website, taking a look at any possibility of collaborating. There's a possibility of presenting some of your work in our webinars that we have. We have monthly webinars throughout the coming year, and we're working towards scheduling some of them for the end of next year. And then we also have a symposium that's coming up in February of 2021 that may be of interest to some of you as well. We also extend the opportunity for writing in our magazine. We have a magazine called the Connect magazine, and that is another area where colleagues can share their research as it relates to mentoring. So we open and offer those opportunities to those of you who are participating in this particular event. And we wish you well as you continue working on your projects related to the mentoring field and the mentoring world. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Fuman, for sharing about the mentoring across border, especially focus on only female voice. Okay, so Professor, can I ask you a question? Why your program focuses only the female only the female, why not the male? Thank you.
Brenda?
Well, that question's for you.
Is it for me? Why women? Okay. Well, particularly when you look at especially the context of South Africa, Black women, especially women coming from marginalized communities, they have been exposed to a lot of vulnerabilities. So the call now is really to bring women into higher education, to take up the spaces, to take up the role of even leadership, because of the previous and the historical marginalization and the political marginalization in South Africa. So Black women continue to face challenges. So this project, it's rightfully addressing one of the key areas in South Africa around transformation, targeting Black women from previously marginalized communities. So it's deliberate, it's also strategic.
Now, I will make a comment about that because in the one book that I've written about mentoring away the glass ceiling, again, it is about women, and the glass ceiling is related to women, not so much for men. And so that is part of that research base where we're talking about a glass ceiling, where it is more difficult for women and women of various diverse backgrounds to move beyond certain levels in their careers. And so we do focus on that so we can help understand why this is occurring and what we can do about it to help other women move forward in their careers.
Thank you, Dr. So for wonderful explanations. And now we got a question from our audience, and let me read the question for you. The question is from Mr. Netra. Could you please mention more on what should be other essential needs for your future project and how you could do to make it more effective? Thank you.
I think mentoring plays an important role. And for me to have this to be effective, it's not only theorizing, it's a mentoring with actions and achievable outcomes. So in our conversation, it's not only what you'd like to do, it's how you can do it and when are you going to do it. So it's a plan with action, but also with measurable and feasible plans. So that's what I actually learned from this the process, because there's so much written about mentoring. There's so much around what needs to be done, but when it gets to action, we see taking there. So to me, mentoring with action make it something achievable. So it make my work achievable, you know. And I wouldn't be here. This is one typical example. If it was not because of Brenda, I wouldn't be in this conference. You know, so it was not just how are you? It was like, okay, there is a conference. Are you interested? Do you think there's something that you can pull from your experiences? And for me, it actually epitomized mentoring with action. So we need more active mentors. We need more action in mentoring so that there are deliverables.
Okay.
I think just a quick comment. I think about the work that Dr. Phumani has done related to the asset-based approach. And in talking about assets, we're talking about what we already have and what we have learned and what can we do with some of the things that we've already learned and build upon that. And while Dr. Phumani mentions that me serving as a mentor has propelled her in different ways, I am honored to be able to do that. But I also want to say that, again, in looking at her asset-based approach to research, I find the assets within her. And so we're building upon her assets as we move forward with the different types of research projects.
Thank you, Doctor. Now we got another question from our audience, Kuntai. The question is, between the men and women, which one is the main challenges in order to encounter in your research? Thank you.
Between the men and women, which one is the main challenge in order to encounter in your research? I think I really haven't done a comparative study because I don't just want to talk from non-scientific research, and I haven't done a comparative study. I don't know, maybe with the experience of somewhere through the reading, she came across any differences. But for me here, I'm looking at a space where we can create and improve the work that we are doing as women in higher education from previously marginalized. And for me, if I want to work with men, it would be from the asset base where I see men contributing, not taking out. So I think Brenda mentioned the important approach, which is a theoretical framework that I believe in, that you need to we are an asset and we can find other assets to support us. So in these instances, men from the asset-based perspective, it's about contributing and also understanding the lacuna that is thriving in South Africa, where women from previously marginalized communities are still experiencing challenges in higher education. So I see men as assets towards contributing to our space in higher education. Yeah, so that would be my take. I don't know, Brenda, any comparative studies that you have done?
I haven't done comparative studies on the men either. I can say that I do have colleagues who have their different programs for when there are younger men who are in school age and college age, when they have challenges, especially men of color in the United States, when they have challenges. So there are some programs where they work specifically with the men, and then they describe their programs just recently for us in a webinar for the International Mentoring Association. But then they recently opened their program up to young ladies as well, because the program works well. And so again, you know, we can do comparisons, but we also can look at how we can collaborate together on the different types of issues that we are having. So we do think about and talk about having men as sponsors for women to help them move forward and to break that glass ceiling. So again, as Dr. Phumani said, we always want to look in the positive at that asset-based perspective to build on what it is that we have and to move forward.
Thank you, Doctor. Now we got another question from Chanti. She stated that since you were working with one another to write a mentoring book, I would like you to express some challenges in doing it. Thank you.
Let me see if I'm understanding the question, and that was about the writing of the book for the mentoring across the glass ceiling. Is that the question?
Yes, Miss.
Yes. With the book Mentoring Across the Glass Ceiling, the challenge that any editor would have is bringing all the stories together. But in bringing all those stories together, what I did was I used the theories of intersectionality, and in using intersectionality, we're able to bring together how the stories relate to each other. And then I also used the Yoso's theory of cultural capital, and using Yoso's theory of cultural capital, then I was able to look at it and to break it down into 3 distinct areas of how all these women had certain challenges and what areas those challenges fell into. So some of them were social, some of them were in other different categories, but then in putting them into those particular categories, that's a way to help the mentor identify at what area and what position the person is in their career trajectory, and they can understand how to help them better as a mentor. So the process of collaborating, getting all the stories together, just as any editor would for any book, that's a tedious process that you have to, work diligently on, and to make sure that, everyone, their information is somewhat flowing in their verbiage and their words, their language as they want it, but at the same time adhering to the different ideology that you have as an editor for your particular book.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. And one more question from Cung Hiền. Oh, Dr. Finan, you want to add more?
No, I was saying the next question. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So one more question is from Mr. Cung Hiền. So the question is, what are the challenges in mentoring process?
Okay. I would say challenges in mentoring process sometimes are your communication barriers. For example, with myself and Dr. Phumani, I'm in the United States and she is in South Africa, and we actually do have different languages, and oftentimes there are certain words that she will use specifically to get a point across because it's very near and dear to her. But she has to explain that to me so that I'm sure that I am understanding exactly what it is that she's thinking and feeling. And so while this has sometimes been a challenge, it's also been a wonderful experience to expand myself as a mentor And so that's another challenge where some mentors don't feel like they, or they don't allow themselves to expand themselves through their mentees. It's not always top down, it's really an interrelational situation. And then there's also the challenge of setting up boundaries. We have to know and we have to really discuss actually what it is that we want to get from the relationship. And if there are certain things that we can and cannot talk about, we really need to share that so that we respect those boundaries. So those are a couple of the challenges that often come up in any mentoring relationship. Dr. Fumani, your thought?
Yes, no, yeah, I totally agree with you in terms of the language. And I remember I used to say language barrier, but after realizing that it's actually language challenges. So because from that you got to learn other languages. So it becomes a challenge, but where you share the same, the thing is that where you share some of the value system, like you said, there are things that you need to talk about and iron out before you can get to the business. But, so some of the challenges, though it didn't happen to me in Brenda, but because also I got young people who look up to me as a mentor, and yet I'm a mentee. So you might find that there are some issues that if you don't set the boundaries, you can be absorbed into them, and you end up not reaching the goal. So you should always check and say the value system, understand one another's value system, understand that there are stories, and that might take time. So mentoring, it could be time consuming because you need to create a space to listen to one another and get to know one another so that you can check whether this is the mentoring journey that I want to embark on with this particular individual. Another thing is now collective, because there are so many, especially for us, there are so many women now who are taking the space in higher education, and there are very few mentors, I want to say, in higher education. And you find like we are competing for that particular mentor, because also we also look at the person in terms of the value system, the approach, the respect they have for one another. So the pool for mentors is very small from where I come from. So we are now competing for that, and that can cause a tension in itself. So those are some of the things that I see as challenges. Yeah.
Thank you, Doctor. Now, I think one last question because we have only 2 minutes left. So the question is, it is so hard to keep sustainable in motivation or inspire someone to change. So could you give me some techniques about this? Thank you.
Oh, well, that is a quite interesting question. When we go into a mentoring relation, again, that is a negotiation. So I think it's part of a perspective that the mentee has to be willing to be inspired or to be motivated. And if that is, not something that is part of that relationship, there may be a breakdown in the relationship. And so for me, and just with the example with Dr. Fumani, I will always ask her if she wants to participate in a project. But, I also keep in mind that she does have other projects going on. She has her career. And so sometimes it may not be a motivation level. It may just be that there are other things that are going on. And so it's just having an awareness of the different things that are going on. And so there are different ways to inspire one. And so we have to even think about, well, how is another way that I might inspire this person? And sometimes it's a conversation as to digging down into a particular issue that is going on that can help with that inspiration.
Yeah, I don't know. I think because communication,
Okay.
that I did conference. So there should be some results from that. Yeah.
So thank you so much for spending time with us, sharing interesting topic and answer to our participants' question. And now it's time. So I would like to say thank you for the doctors